Yeah.
What is going on? Welcome back to the Dynasty Gambit. I am your host, Jay. You can always find me at FantasyJ77 on Twitter. I don't know why you did that, but okay. Oh, it was Brian. Brian did that. He wanted more of the music last week. He was trying to
There it is.
What it was.
You have no idea. I was sitting over here jamming.
I am joined, as always, by my faithful co-host, Mr. Brian Vandygrad92 over there on Twitter, and Steven, our newest member, at Target Shares over there on Twitter. Boys, week 1 is in the books, and wow. Crazy. Not a great fantasy week for yours truly. Going 19-13 overall. Oof, it was not good. Injuries, all that sort of thing. I hope both Brian, Steve, I hope your guys' week was better. Brian, tell me about it.
My week was pretty okay. Unlike the 32 that you're in, I'm only in 9, but I was 6-3, and my biggest loss was J.K. Dobbins. I lost him in 2 of those 9 leagues, so I spent the waiver time playing with that. But my most important league that I'm in for 23 years now, my league of record, I had the Miami Dolphins stack of Tua, Hill, and also Waddle. So I had the high score of the week. So I'm happy with that.
Was that a small flex or was that a big flex?
Oh, exactly, right? I might throw in DFS, but to have it for week 1 of the regular season in your most important league that you've won 4 times.
Right.
Nice.
Absolutely. Steven, how was your week? Go ahead and let us know.
It was good. Yeah, I don't know my record off the top of my head. I'll have to look at that. But I have Ayuk in as many leagues as I possibly can, and it was a ton of fun watching him go for 8 receptions, 129 yards, 2 touchdowns. I have always thought, or at least over the last couple of years, thought he's in that top tier of talent, but he's sort of held back by how many great players there are on that 49ers offense. And it was just fun just watching him smash. I hope that continues for the rest of the year.
Yeah, not only did he have eight receptions, it was on 8 targets. He caught everything.
Yeah, and some of those were deep targets too. I mean, that's pretty efficient.
What's going on, Jamie? Appreciate you joining us tonight for the Gambit. Yeah, I agree. I don't know if I can put him in that top tier yet with Jefferson and Chase, but I can see him being right there with a Hill, Waddle, those guys and second tier right now.
Mm-hmm.
But again, you're talking about a guy that went off for 30 points. Can he do it again? Can he consistently do it? And with the weapons that they have, I still think there's a possibility, even going into this week against the Rams, that there's a chance for him to absolutely explode again this week. So with the waiver wire just happening the other day, first waivers of 2023, I posed the question, what was your biggest waiver ad and what was the cost? Steve?
So I bid a lot and I failed a lot. I bid on Puka Nacua pretty consistently and missed him, I think, everywhere. I still don't think I have a Puka share. I think my biggest actual bid in like a normal redraft league was probably Justice Hill for like 5% of my fab. Not super high on Justice Hill, to be honest. I think, Gus Edwards is still going to be involved there, but kind of like leaning into the uncertainty of the situation and just maybe Justice Hill takes on, not that the Ravens pass the ball that much to the running backs, but if they do, hopefully it's to him. But yeah, I've bid a lot and missed a lot, honestly.
Yeah, I play more Dynasty than anything else. I do have a couple redraft leagues, but in one of my Dynasty leagues on this past, it would have been Thursday morning, somebody dropped. Actually, I'll go ahead and call him out because he is part of the Going for Two family. And Los D screwed up and he dropped Puka. I immediately put a claim in. Nobody else claimed him. So I added Puka to another league, which I was absolutely grateful for. So I didn't have the opportunity to add Puka very many places because most places he was already picked up.
Yep.
I did see an outrageous bid on Puka at almost 75% of fab.
Ooh.
Wow.
Brian, who was your biggest player, biggest waiver ad this week?
Well, like I was saying in that league of record where I lost Dobbins, I went for running back depth. So I went Gus Edwards and Kyron Williams. I bet a little bit more on Kyron because I thought he'd go a little bit deeper. So I went 27% on him and 17 on Gus Edwards. So still got 56%. But my running back room after Dobbins, I've always used that second running back position as more of a flex position rather than trying to go stud running backs. I go stud wide receivers. So I wanted a little bit more running back depth. So that's the way I went.
Yeah. It's hard for me to justify spending more than, 45, 50% of my fab in week one, right?
Yeah.
But don't get me wrong. I enjoy the people that do, because when it comes to week 6, week 7, when somebody has to drop somebody because of a bye week, I'm able to spend way less fab and my fab becomes more valuable.
Yep.
Right. So my biggest guy that I added 10% of my fab in one league was Adam Troutman. And it basically, I was able to scoop him up in 4 leagues, but the most I spent on was 10%. 2 main reasons is the Dolch's hamstring issue. We know how those things linger. So, it could be a 4-week injury, but hell, then it could be like 7 weeks before he's back. But we also know that Troutman is Sean Payton's guy from back in the day when he was in New Orleans.
Yep.
When you look at what he did on this past Sunday, 5 for 5, only 34 yards, but he was tight end number 10 on the week in PPR formats. So, yes, Adam Troutman was a target of mine as soon as the Dolchich news came out. I didn't want to overspend on him, but I was fine going 10%. I just didn't want to do that 15 to 30% area on a player that, if Dolchich does come back in 3 weeks, playing that joker role. I do think Peyton does want to play with both tight ends. I just don't see Adam Troutman being the lead tight end in that system. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah.
I totally agree. You mentioned being top 10. There were so many that were right there together. Laporta was 5 for 5 for 39 yards. I mean, unless you scored a touchdown, five catches, 4 catches, and close to 40 yards was, a pretty decent showing, really, especially considering that Dulcich did play part of the game. So,
yeah, agree there. I think the biggest question for me was Marvin Mims. Just kind of wondering why he didn't get on the field at all. I think he was 27% of the routes. So I think that opens up opportunities for anyone else. I mean, he was playing behind little Jordan Humphrey. What's with that? So I'd like taking bets on anyone else. And I think that was one of the surprises for me there.
Yeah. So I was excited to see when I woke up at 4 a.m. that the waivers that I had run at that point. I had Troutman in a couple of those. And then, of course, at 7 a.m. when the others ran. But that 4 a.m. wake up call on Wednesday is going to get early. It's going to get early because I don't even know why I care at this point, why I feel like I have to get up, because I can't do anything about it. I can't change it after the fact, right?
But isn't it almost like Christmas morning?
It's every morning, every Wednesday. But for the next 16, 17 weeks, it's going to be.
Did I get him?
Get my guy. That's right. Guys, if you are watching over there on Twitter or on Facebook and you want to interact with the show, please join us over here on the YouTube side of things at the Going for Two YouTube channel. That way you can interact with us like Jamie right here. Jamie made a trade, I guess, today. He gave up DeAndre Swift, Bateman, a 24 third. Jamie said it's late. We don't know that it's going to be late yet because of hell. We still got 16 weeks to play. Hopefully it'll be late. And he received a possibly top 3 overall pick. Would you give up Swift and Bateman alone for a top 3? Again, trying to guarantee that it's a top 3 pick is kind of futile at this point, in my opinion. But Swift, Bateman, and a third for a 24 first. What do you think, Brian?
That's tough, but and like you said, you can't guarantee it's a top 3. But at the end of the season, if it's a top 3, I don't think you're really giving up that much, to be honest. I mean, Bateman showed little to nothing last week, and Philadelphia. I know we've got an Eagles fan amongst us, so I'm not sure what he thinks. He didn't pick. We'll get to his picks a little later, but Swift wasn't at the top of his forehead either. So I don't know. I guess I'm okay with it.
I'm probably about as high on Bateman as you can be, especially now looking at how good Zay Flowers was. And I still like the trade. I would definitely say yes to the 2024 first for Swift and Bateman.
Okay.
I still think Bateman can be good. I don't know if anyone else here thinks. Zay Flowers gives me, he looked great, but he gives me a little bit of Rondale Moore vibes. His average depth of target was like 2 yards. It seemed like there were a lot of screen passes. It feels like a little gadgety. I still think Bateman could be like one of a really solid receiver for the Ravens.
You say it seems a little gadgety, and here's where I wonder. I mean, Todd Monken's first year. It's also, Jackson's first year with Todd Monken and with the aspirations of passing more. I don't know. You can call it a little gadgety. I don't think it's gadgety. Jamie, to answer your question, all three of us say yes, this trade is a good trade. We'll find out this week, probably. I think Swift is going to explode this week. And if you'd have held him, you probably could have got a little bit more. But Swift, Bateman, who cares about the third at this point? Especially if that turns out to be a top 3 pick.
Sure. That's
a smash. So great job on that, Jamie. He says, oh, it will be a late pick. He's already predicting that he's winning a championship. love the confidence there. Love the confidence. That guy's team is horrible, so it'll be a top 3. Well, if it turns out, then turns out that it's a top 3, that's a smash for me.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, let's get into some of these news and notes. Even though we've talked a little bit about some stuff, let's talk about some of these news and notes. Let's start off with Steven.
Sounds good. So there it is. Perfect. So this graph, I'll just explain it really quickly. So all these stats are from NFL Next Gen Stats. I really like their stuff if you haven't seen it before. But what you're looking at on the x-axis is their rushing yards over expectation. Basically, they use their tracking data and then they set an expectation for how many yards each carry will go for. And if the running back runs for more, obviously that's a good thing. And if they run for less, it's a bad thing. For me, it's a measure of talent. If a running back can consistently get more yards than otherwise they would be expected to get, it's obviously a really good thing for just viewing them as a talented running back. The y-axis is similar, but it's more like success rate, number of carries where they got more yards than that expected number. So really where you want to be is in the top right. You could probably guess that by looking at the names, Eckler, Chubb, McCaffrey, all in the top right there. Where you don't really want to be is in the bottom left. Again, it's a small sample size. It's just week 1. But where I want to talk about is Kenneth Gainwell being in the bottom left there. Obviously, he's not playing this week, and he just wasn't particularly efficient on his snaps in week 1. And so I really kind of going back to that Eagles running back conversation. Is it going to be Swift? Is it going to be Penny? I am hoping it's to see a good amount of Penny. If you were to look at this in 2021, Rashad Penny was number 1 in the league in rushing yards over expectation. He had 1.86 rushing yards over expected per attempt, which is a really good number. I would love to see what Penny does behind the Eagles offensive line. I'm hoping to see a good amount of Penny tonight. I know we didn't spend basically anything for him. It's 1-year deal, like $600,000 some dollars guaranteed. It's basically nothing, but I'm hoping to see what Penny looks like tonight.
I will add. I want to see what Penny looks like tonight too. If he gets on the field, what bothers me is that they healthy scratched him.
Yeah, it's a bad sign. It's a bad sign.
It's not good, Bob, as they say. Not good, Bob.
Not great.
But also, to keep in mind that they weren't healthy scratch, but each Boston, Scott, and Swift had 1 carry apiece last week, so they might as well have been healthy scratched.
Yeah, Gainwell dominated the touches. He had 88% of the carries.
Yeah, and to add to that, Sirianni came out and said, that this is how they're going to use them. They're going to get Swift involved. My concern is both Swift and Gainwell are more of a outside runner, pass catching back, and and again now we see why Gainwell is hurt. When you try to take a smaller back and run him up the middle,
Yep.
Too many times in one game. Injuries are going to happen. Brian, what you got for news and notes?
Well, let's go over some of the injuries here. Do you want to read them off, and you and I can
You want to go to the injuries first?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. So for tonight, or do you want to talk about the other injuries?
We'll talk about the injuries, and then we can come back and focus on tonight's game moving forward. How about that?
Well, then you go right ahead.
Okay. Well, the first one that we should look at is the Austin Eckler. I think that's probably the biggest name. He's missed practice both yesterday and today. So the big question is, as somebody that's written injury articles in the past, tomorrow is going to be a huge practice day for him. If he's not out there tomorrow, you might be looking at Joshua Kelly this weekend, and he's some people, depending on who the fantasy pundit is, have him in a top 24 running back for the week.
Well, real quick, I saw a thing where Austin Eckler, I believe he was on Yahoo, and some of these players like to give out their own advice. But here's the thing about Eckler is he plays fantasy football.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't mind him giving his advice, but he did say, add Joshua Kelly.
He looked good too. I mean, I think a lot of that is scheme. I think you got to give some of that credit to Kellen Moore. That's my opinion, obviously. But the Chargers can run the ball now, whereas they couldn't in the past. And I think a lot of that is offensive scheme. I mean, the Chargers really, really dominated. Like they were both Kelly. You saw on the graph, both Kelly and Eckler were in the top right there. Yep. Some of that's talent, but some of that is also scheme. And I think in Kelly's, at least for Kelly, a lot of that scheme. I would definitely want to start him. I mean, who do you? A friend of mine asked this question: would you start Najee Harris or Joshua Kelly, even if Austin Eckler plays? Who are you playing between the two? For context, Kelly outscored Najee.
I would go with Najee, but if Eckler doesn't play, I'd go with Kelly.
Yeah, I'd have to see who they're playing, but I think Pittsburgh has a tough matchup this week.
They got Cleveland on Monday night.
Yeah, man. Oh, that sucks so bad.
Yeah,
I think it's Kelly. If Eckler's out, it's Kelly.
I said Kelly regardless. Kelly outscored him week 1.
I can see.
Yeah, I can see that. By the way, Kyle Sinra, the guy that held the Gambit together all offseason in the chat. Thank you for stopping by, Kyle. And he also agrees, Jamie, getting that 24 first, assuming it's Superflex, is a smash.
Yeah, absolute smash.
All right, Brian, your next one.
Next one would be, let me think off the top of my head, a couple of tight ends that missed last week, both Kelsey and Andrews. They returned to practice yesterday. I think they are on a good way of going for this week. And after last week's tight end performances, we definitely need a couple of the top tier tight ends back.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. What you got next?
Next one, a couple of Green Bay Packers that are missing practice this week. Aaron Jones left the game early last week, so that's a big one to monitor. And then Christian Watson, he missed last week, but both of them have missed practice both yesterday and today. And those are a couple of big names for the Packers for sure.
Yeah, I think if you are sitting there with Aaron Jones, I believe it is a hamstring, if I'm not mistaken, and we talked about that earlier. That's a rough situation because he looked good. He looked real good.
Really good.
But if you are an AJ Dillon owner, man, oh man, you're sitting there on cloud 9 right now if Aaron Jones does not start. So next one.
The longer term one to look at is Deontay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a huge Deontay fan.
Me too.
So I would hate that, but he says he's quote unquote day to day, but the team says more looking like a 4-week absence. So hard to say. Deontay's shown in the past the tendency to come back pretty darn quick. So hopefully it doesn't come back too quick. They need him long term. Although some would say after last week's performance, there is no long term. But as a Steelers fan, I'm going to disagree.
I really like Deontay too, for sure. I mean, using those next gen stats again, he's number 1 overall in 2022 and getting open. And I think the same thing in 2021. The guy just gets open, which is sort of the opposite of what George Pickens does. He doesn't particularly get open at an above average rate, but man, are his catches fun to watch.
Yeah, Pickens doesn't separate for very well.
Not a ton. That's why you get a lot of contested catches, but he's really good at those, and they're quite fun to watch. But yeah, I mean, Deontay just gets open so quickly.
Well, if there is an extended, if he's out for an extended period, who do you expect out of Pickens and Robinson to take that number 1? Because if you look at last week, both of them 89% snap share. Both of them caught 5 balls. Of course, Pickens only had 7 targets. Robinson only had 8 targets, but they both caught 5 balls.
For the Steelers, for the sake of the Steelers, I'm hoping it's Pickens. I'm hoping he can step up, but it's hard to run an offense through a guy that doesn't separate that well. I don't know what I didn't really get to watch a lot of Allen Robinson in week 1. So I'm curious what you both saw, but I think his role is definitely, I would assume his role is, which is more of a slot receiver for the Steelers versus what he was with the Rams. That has to fit his skill set, whatever it is left, a lot better than it did when he was with the Rams.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Pickens is your wide receiver 1, but I'm going to be honest with you. A guy I would not sleep on, and I spent a small percentage of my fab on him, is Calvin Austin. Don't forget the name, because Calvin Austin, up while Deontay's out, could have more value than Allen Robinson.
Fair. I'm glad you brought that up. What's your next one?
Trying to think. What else am I showing on the sheet?
You got Zach Moss.
Zach Moss. Yeah, Zach Moss is returned to practice on Wednesday. If you want to be the Colts starter at running back, I think he's got the real upside to do it. He's listed at number 1 on the depth chart, so he could be the starter, but I don't really know what that means. And the other thing that's eerily quiet lately is any Jonathan Taylor news. I don't know what the heck's going on with him.
Well, he's on the pup list, so there's no news that you're not going to hear anything till probably till the start of week 3, towards the end of week 3, going into week 4, I would think, because really there's nothing they can do.
But he can still be traded.
Sure, yeah, but he's on the pup list, right? So
he can't play anyway.
I believe that even if he gets traded right now, he still has to sit the 4 weeks.
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't think he can play. So why would a team trade for him now when you could just wait?
Yep.
But yeah, Zach Moss, if you need a starting running back, he could be the guy. But like I said, I would just go offense. I'm going to give kudos out to Anthony Richardson. He had a pretty good game for a rookie.
Yeah, I think the issue there, this is just my opinion. So Steve, jump in if if you have something different. But I guess he's going to be the RB1 in front of Deion Jackson, who 71% snap share last week, 13 carries for Deion Jackson for a grand total of 14 yards.
Woof. Yeah.
Where in the hell is JT?
He's got to be laughing at home.
Steve, I know you may be too young for this, but Brian, you remember the when computers first came out back in our day, and there was a game called Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego?
Yep.
Yes. So the new version, the 2023 version, is Where in the World is JT?
I think he's laughing at Deion Jackson from his couch.
And the funny thing, Jackson had a couple of good games last year. So the line, maybe.
I don't know. You're right. He did have a couple of good games. I guess I thought he was more talented than Zach Moss. I'm not excited about Zach Moss in the slightest. I don't know if either of you are.
When I saw this on the show sheet, I literally had to pull Zach Moss up and Deion Jackson because I wanted to see. I just assumed that, Zach Moss is definitely bigger. He's got to be bigger.
Sure.
He's not only is he not height wise, he's shorter. He's also weighs about 10 pounds less.
Moss did have a couple good games at the end of last year. So,
yeah, but that just tells me that Deion Jackson is
crap.
Not a guy that I want on my team.
I don't want any of them.
Right?
I'm going to pass on all of the Colts running backs.
That's the whole point for sure.
Yeah.
I don't think you really want any of them.
Yeah.
I'll let you get to one more because this is somebody that I'm interested in hearing everybody's take on, and that is Jerry Jeudy.
Well, Judy actually he warmed up before the game last week, so apparently he was pretty close to playing, and that's one of the reasons that even the Marvin Mims disappearing act was even more surprising.
Right.
Is that Judy didn't play, but that being said, if he's playing this week, keep an eye on practice reports. He's still got a ton of upside to be the wide receiver one, I think. So.
I agree. Couldn't agree more. I really think he does. Like, if they're not playing Marvin Mims and he's competing against little Jordan Humphrey, I have to think Jeudy dominates the targets.
Listed as a full participant in practice today. If he does start, is he in your starting lineup?
Yeah, he's in my starting lineup. Every league starts at least 2 wide receivers, and typically speaking, you start 3 or 4 in these bigger flex leagues. So yeah, he's definitely got to be in my starting lineup.
Steve? Uh-oh. Steve, you froze. All right, so it's just going to be you and me, Vandy, for just a few minutes. Hopefully, Steven can jump back in. Couple other things you got on here. We'll just whip through them real quick. Jacoby Myers concussion missed practice both yesterday and today. DeAndre Hopkins missed practice both yesterday and today with an ankle issue. And I think that covers everybody you had on here. So let's go to the biggest surprise for you week 1.
The biggest surprise to me, and I don't know, based on past years, it may not be that surprising, but a lot of the defenses seem to be ahead of the offenses, I felt like. And in particular, talking specifically about the Browns versus the Bengals, the 49ers versus the Steelers, and the Cowboys versus the Giants. There was no fantasy production from Bengals, Steelers, or Giants players at all. So that was kind of surprising to me how dominant those 3 defenses look. But last year, in regards to fantasy football, both the Cowboys and 49ers were top 4 defenses across the league. So, maybe they really are that good. A friend of mine in the league of record, we were sitting there watching the Cowboys game, to get kind of talking texting on the phone and stuff. And he had the Cowboys defense, and he was behind by a gazillion points and wound up winning. He scored 50 points from that defense alone. So, yeah, just the domination of those 3 defenses in particular was pretty amazing.
Yeah, my biggest surprise, like I said pre-show, was that the Bucs actually went into Minnesota and won the game. But it was funny to me because I was watching the game and coming out of the half, Matt Ryan was commentating the game, or was the analyst in the game, and the commentator looks at Matt Ryan and goes, "So outside of the 3 turnovers, this game should be 28-3 right now. Am I wrong?" And I swear Matt Ryan wanted to punch him in his throat. Just the expression on his face, he wanted to punch him. So that was the biggest surprise, is that there was not a fight in the booth in Minnesota.
That's funny.
Really enjoyed it. So Steven just messaged me. He bad storm where he's at, and he lost power, so he'll jump back in when he can. Let's get over to the stock up, stock down this week, and Brian, I'll go ahead and let you lead this off and see where we go from there.
Okay. Let's see. I'm trying to think who my stock up was.
A quarterback that outscored everybody in the world.
Yes. Yeah, how can I forget? I mean, considering I picked him up in my league of record, one to it Tagovailoa, I guess you pronounce that. I don't even care how you pronounce it last.
to a touchdown to Loa.
Exactly. So yeah, he's my stock up. Like I said on our notes there, a guy had an opportunity in our league, and I forget what round it was. It was round 10 plus. We are a league that keeps one player based on last year's draft position of where we drafted him. You lose 2 rounds for keeping him. So he could have kept him in the 10th plus, 10th, 11th, 12th, somewhere in that. And he said before the season, somebody asked him, why didn't you keep him? He's had a history of too many injuries. And that may prove to be correct. I hope not. But week 1, he was fine. He had, 27 to 45 for 466 yards and 3 touchdowns. And Tyreek Hill had a pretty good game as well.
So, I mean, I don't even I watched a good bit of the game, but I don't remember seeing him get hit a bunch either.
No, I mean, I'm like you. I got to watch bits and pieces of it. It wasn't on local, so I was watching it kind of on the NFL Network. They like to show games. I'm trying to figure out how I can get back to Red Zone. I don't know if they have that on my mom's TV or not. We were staying with her because of the Alzheimer's, but yeah, I didn't seem to get hit a lot. And so if I can keep him upright, I think he'll be just fine. I considered him to be right there with Trevor Lawrence of potential breakouts this year, top 5 potential. So
Jamie's in the chat trying to pronounce his name and he can't even type it right. Jamie, it's Tua touchdown of Aloha. That's all you do. TD Aloha. Steven, who's your stock up for the week?
It was actually Tua as well, which I think is a great pick. But to pick someone else other than Tua and other than Ayuk, who I already talked up, I'll pick ETN. I think the main reason I was, a little bit worried about ETN coming to the season was the lack of targets. I feel like he's sort of like a misunderstood player. Coming out of college, everyone expected that he'd be this really great pass catching running back. Didn't really happen in his first season, but I think he was top 5 in route participation among running backs in week 1. He had 5 targets. If he can keep that up, I mean, it's really a great sign for ETN. So got to be stock up for him.
Tank Bigsby, who? Nowhere to be found. Go ahead with your stock down.
It's hard for me to pick anyone other than Drake London. I have a lot of Drake London. I think he's a really talented receiver, but he tied Desmond Ridder with 1 target. That's not ideal. That's not what you want. And then I also found it really funny that Desmond Ridder in the entire game had 58 air yards for all of his passes. Josh Allen had 65 on 1 pass attempt.
Oh, stop. You're gonna cause Desmond Ridder to go in the first round next year.
So pretty tough for Ridder to have fewer air yards in the entire season or in the entire week compared to Josh Allen's 1 pass attempt. I'm hoping that's something that we don't have to watch for the whole season. I'm hoping they open it up a little bit more than that, but you can't have 50% of your targets going to running backs. It's just not sustainable.
My concern this week, you can't start London. He's going to see Jair Alexander, Rashul Douglas. I don't think he's startable.
I don't think so either. I think if you have to bench him, I think, which really stinks because you spend in redraft, you spend a decent pick on him. Obviously, Dynasty, he's still a really good Dynasty asset, but you can't play him this week.
Yep. Brian, stock down for you.
I went with Deion Jackson Light. That would be Cam Akers.
Ouch.
I thought they were the same person.
22 carries for 29 yards. I think he did score a touchdown. But the biggest surprise for me is there had been a lot of off-season, like during the camp and the preseason, about Kyron Williams, but I still didn't expect a 35% snap share from Cam. So, like I said, the Rams on paper looked really good last week, but Cam Akers forgot to come to the party, I guess.
And all those carries came in the 4th quarter, right? When they were already up. That's not a good sign either.
All those did 4th. So,
all righty. Well, it's halfway through the show. Let's talk about tonight's game. Tonight is the Vikings at the Eagles. The Eagles are favored by 60. Over-under is 49. As of 4:30, that line may have changed a little bit here and there. But right now, what we're going off of is a Eagles by 6, over-under of 49. Players that are out tonight that are meaning anything for fantasy. Kenneth Gainwell for the ribs, or with his ribs, is out on the defensive side of the ball. Reed Blankenship is out. Bradbury, concussion, is out. Fletcher Cox with his ribs is questionable. Haven't heard anything on him since the 4:30 mark, so I don't know if he's even been out there, pregame practicing with that.
Yeah. So I think what's really interesting with the Eagles defense is that they had 6 defenders last year. That played 17 games and at least 70% of the snaps. 5 of them are not playing for the Eagles tonight. So new look defense. You have to think the Vikings are going to pick on Josh Jobe. That's the corner that's starting in place of Bradbury. So that's where I would go. Pretty untested, unrestricted free agent. It's a second year. I don't think I've seen a lot of them. I don't think he's really been on the field enough to really know if he's any good, but curious to see how he plays tonight.
For the Vikings, I believe the only one that's on here, I get 2 offensive linemen with Garrett Bradbury and Christian Darrisaw. But Marcus Davenport with his ankle is questionable. I think he's the only one that would be fantasy relevant as far, unless you're playing in an all 22, of course, IDP wise. Brian, who is somebody that you want to keep an eye on? Actually, you know what? Let me go to Steven first. Steven, who's the one player that you want to keep an eye on for in this game tonight? I think you've already brought him up once, but let's talk about it.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's Penny. I'm hoping, and you might not have to have a lot of eyes on him if they just play Swift and Boston Scott. But I'm hoping we see some Rashad Penny tonight. Like I said, he was really, really efficient in his career so far. The Vikings actually had a pretty decent run defense last week, but it's 1 week and they played the Buccaneers. Rashad White wasn't particularly efficient last year. He wasn't particularly efficient in week 1. So I'm kind of curious what the Vikings run defense looks like and if we can see some Penny out there.
Yeah, I so bad wanted to put comments and cross out everything you said about the Bucs and Rashad White when I saw your notes, and I just couldn't, because 17 for 30, 31.
Like that. Yeah,
it was not good. Not good, Bob. But I also know that the Bucs are not the best team in the league, right? And other side of that coin is their defense is very good. Philly's defense is very good. Philly's defense is probably great at this point when you look at it. They're going to be able to allow Philly's offense to be on the field a lot more than the Bucs were on the field, in my opinion.
Yep.
Brian, who's one player that you are looking forward to watching, keeping your eyes on tonight?
I like Steven's pick of Penny, at least in regards to it being Philadelphia backfield. But I actually went with Swift. I looked at after he wrote that, I looked at the depth chart, and right now Swift is second.
Yep.
So who knows? I mean,
so on the depth chart, is Gainwell first?
Gainwell's first.
Yeah.
Swift is second. And then I think that Penny's fourth behind Boston Scott.
I think he was. That's why he was
he was the
healthy scratch. Yeah.
So, it could be any one of the 3 healthy running backs, but I just went with Swift. Who knows, really? But it'd be a running back. I mean, it would be kind of boring to pick any of the receiving options. So.
I don't know if it'd be boring. I want to see what they're going to do as well, especially against that Minnesota porous defense.
Yep.
Well, but we all know they're going to do well. So
yeah, agreed.
So it's a little less exciting than figuring out which running back is going to be playing. So
who wins tonight, Brian?
But actually, after last week getting beat by those not so great Bucks, can you pick anybody but the Eagles? I don't see how you can. And then my prediction is 31-21. So
you were 31-21. You're taking the over of the, what is it, 48? Did I say?
Yeah, I think it was 48.5. At least it was a little while ago.
Okay.
Because we were talking about the Eagles defense, and it is outstanding. But one stat that really stood out to me on paper is that they were fourth last year in passing yards allowed to the opposing team. So that kind of stood out on the map to me. So I think there could be a little offense tonight.
I think you would only know one player in our secondary tonight, honestly, unless you're like a really diehard IDP fan. You would know Darius Slay, and then that's it. So,
Jalen Carter.
in the secondary, I mean,
The
specifically,
secondary.
yeah. It's gonna be, it could be rough.
Yeah. Jamie in the chat saying he took the under on an alternative 54.5. I think that's no doubt.
Definitely.
We'll get to that. I'll get to that here just a few minutes, Jamie. I'll explain to you how many points you got way over of what the numbers should be. Steve, who wins tonight?
Yeah, it's the Birds. I'm from Philly. It's the Birds by 100. I'm gonna say 120-0 Birds.
So you're definitely on the over. You're allowing your fandom. And I asked this question earlier, because now is that the jersey that you're wearing right now? Is that Owens?
It's AJ Brown.
Oh, okay.
The 11. Yeah.
One. I'm sitting there going, is that an 81? Is that an 81?
No, 11. Yeah. AJ Brown, my favorite player. I loved him in Tennessee. Couldn't be more ecstatic when he became an Eagle. I was so pumped.
You mean when you Leary and everybody else should have just got arrested for robbery?
Yeah, exactly. Oh God. I love AJ Brown. We call him Alpha J Brown with my friend group. So big AJ Brown fan.
I saw a thing on Twitter today. It was a picture of two bald eagles sitting on a branch. I shared it and commented on it. One was a little bit smaller and one was way bigger. And the caption on it was Hurts and Brown conspiring how they're going to beat Minnesota tonight.
That's funny.
And so I commented. My comment on it was, well, you can definitely tell which one is Hurts and which one is Brown without them putting their jerseys on. It was that clear.
So good.
Oh shit! So I got the Eagles winning tonight. So we are all on the Eagles. My prediction for the game is 27-17. So as you can see, I am on the under, and the reason being is Thursday Night Football, especially on Prime, has left a lot to be desired when it comes to both the betting side of things and fantasy scoring. So yet again, I will stay with the under at what is that? 34, 44, 44.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think I think Jamie's given up a lot more points than he has to tonight. And it may be even less than the 27-17, unless just for some ungodly reason Minnesota decides to play offense and Kirk Cousins doesn't figure out a way to turn the ball over and not be primetime Kirk.
Yeah. You and I reversed roles. I went last week with the under just because it was a Thursday night game.
Well, I was fine with going the over because it was on Peacock and NBC. It wasn't on Prime. We did this last year, Brian.
I just felt like, I think if it had been over 50, I would have gone with the under. So I'm basically thinking the number's about right, but the Vikings have a pretty decent offense as well, and they're going against it sounds like a secondary that's a little banged up. So,
well, I'm gonna only argue that the Vikings have a good offense, but their offensive line has holes.
True.
The Bucs got there last week.
Yep.
And if you think for 1 second that the Philly the Eagles defensive coaching staff was not watching that game in particular,
I think they're excited. Yeah.
Listen, Jalen Carter is sitting there licking his lips. He's like, I'm buying chicken. I'm buying Kirk Cousins. I'm getting it all. It is all me tonight.
Yep. No, I'm excited to see that. I still think the Vikings will have enough success. They'll get the ball out, and the secondary is just going to be tough.
Jalen Carter might break the sack record tonight.
What is that, 6 by Derek Thomas?
Is it 6 or is it 5? I thought it was 5, but it might be 6 by Derek Thomas.
Yeah, I want to say it's 6 by Derek Thomas, but I could be wrong.
I'm not sure.
All right, fellas, let's get into probably one of the most favorite segments for us, but definitely because this segment became popular from the listeners and from the viewers. It is time for the Chrome Dome Parlay of the Night. Brian, lead us off.
I want to be last. Is that okay?
Well, you can be last, I guess. I guess
Sure.
I can let you be last, okay. All right, fine. You can be last. Steven, go ahead.
Sure. So I think these lines have moved slightly in the last couple, maybe last day or last couple of hours. But when I got it, it was Addison for the Vikings over 39.5 receiving yards. I really like that one.
What is it now?
I think it's maybe 42.5 now. Ooh. I think they bumped it up by 3 yards. It was 39.5 at the time. Quez Watkins over 14.5. Kind of just a fun one. I just seemed a little low. He averaged over 20 yards receiving per game last year. He had 17 in week 1. I think if game script is all right, I think he can get 14.5. That's 1 or 2 catches. It's not really a big one. And then I have Madison under 50.5 rushing yards. I think that one also maybe moved down a little bit too.
So, it's moved way down. Wow. Everybody was on the under on that, so it's moved way down. The Quez Watkins one is interesting at 14.5 because he's a speedster.
Yeah,
and if he can make one guy miss, he can get that in one reception. I mean, I guess most of the people can, of course, but he can take a 2-yard pass and go for 40.
He's the clear fourth. Last week he was third, but clear fourth option in receiving for the Eagles. He was over Goddard last week, which is kind of a crazy.
Yeah, well,
let's see that again.
I'm not going to let you do that. I'm not letting you do that. You are not tearing down Dallas Goddard. You're not.
No, I like Dallas Goddard.
That is not happening. He was wide open. Him and Jalen Hurts had multiple conversations this week, and I guarantee you, Dallas Goddard will not see 0 again this week.
Let's hope not, for the Eagles' sake, because he's a really talented tight end. So that'd be a shame. But yeah, obviously fourth most talented receiver by far. But I think he can get 2 catches for over 15 yards.
Yeah, I do. I agree with you on that. As I put on the sheet, I love both of y'all's, and I'll get to Brian's here in just a minute. But I actually have 2 for you tonight. Madison under 48.5 is where the line was at 4:30. So under 48.5 rushing yards. Swift over 35.5 rushing yards. I also took Swift over 15.5 receiving yards. I do believe Swift is going to be the bell cow tonight. And I think there's going to be some of that all year long, where it may be Swift one week, it may be, Penny one week, it may be, Gainwell one week. But that's the thing in fantasy football. That's why we are so just way off on the Philly backfield, because it's just a murky situation. Think about the way we were talking about the San Francisco backfield, just a year or so ago, how murky that situation was. We talked about the Miami backfield the exact same way. So tonight, I think it's going to be a Swift game. And I think that's going to be both on the rushing side. I think it's a way low on the rushing side. Then the receiving side, again, we know Swift can take, a negative 3-yard screen pass and go for 40. So give me those right there. The second one I have for you, I spread it out a little bit more. Hurts over 45.5 rushing. I think that's definitely going to happen. Jefferson 92.5 receiving yards. I went over on that as well. And for my IDP peoples, Jalen Carter over half a sack. He gets at least 1, maybe 7.
Somewhere between 1 and 7.
Brian, go ahead.
Okay, so a while ago, I think Steven and I missed half of the question. Your question was pick a player from each team that we kind of want to put the spotlight on tonight. And so we agree on part of our parlay that Jordan Addison over 39.5 yards. And so for me personally, he'll be the Vikings player that I want to watch. With Justin Jefferson, he'll get once again, he'll always get the attention, but Addison had a big week last week. He wound up, I forget the number of catches, but 61 yards and a touchdown. Yep. So over 39 seems to be a slam dunk to me. So that's part of my parlay. Yeah. I think I've already revealed this, but I went with the over for the game, the over 48.5. Like I said, 51 points sounds about right. So we're not really drastically different from the spread. I just feel like it goes slightly over. Then my next part of my over was Kirk Cousins. And I really kind of went back and forth with this, but 267.5 seems low on the passing yards. with that secondary that Stephen well documented. I went back and forth, like I said, but last year the Eagles did give up the fourth most passing yards to the opposing team, and Kirk hit that total about half the time. So I went with the over, and I wanted to go with an under. And after Dallas Goedert's performance or lack thereof last week, I think there may be some shifting of targets and yardage. So I figure one of the two wide receivers won't have his best game. And I decided to go with Devontae Smith under 64.5 yards receiving.
That's spicy. Real quick, Ian Rappaport just reported left tackle for the Vikings, Christian Derishaw, will be active. Keep an eye on that. So that's good for the running game.
For them, yeah.
But if he gets out there and they're going to keep him monitored, so keep an eye on that. In the notes, I thought you had that as an over there on Devontae Smith. I like everything on yours, except of course the where you have the over, which we've already discussed. Devontae Smith, that number might be right on the number. He could hit 64 and hit that under, crush it, or he could hit 65 and you would be hating life. I don't know if I would touch the Devontae Smith at 64.5. Just my opinion. Addison, absolutely, he's hitting 40, 45 yards, probably on one play. Kirk Cousins, though, the over on 267, even 267.5 is that's so scary. So scary. I don't care what defense he's playing. When you saw him last week, yes, Jefferson went off in the first half, 138 yards in the first half against the Bucs. I don't think he had 10, 15 yards in the second half.
Yeah.
They shut him down. But that was the Tampa goal, was to shut him down.
The theory behind that for me, though, and especially looking at the Tampa game from last week, the Tampa game was competitive throughout. I think the Vikings will be playing, presumably the Vikings will be playing from behind tonight. So he's going to pass 50 or 60 times. So even if he's inefficient, he still could get that number fairly easy.
Ooh. Oh, so everybody's way under on the Madison. If he's passing 50-something times, there's no way in the hell Madison is going to see the ball enough to get 50 yards.
No, he's not going to see that kind of yardage.
I just want to remember everybody real quick. I want to add this PSA in there. Last week, yes, week 1, absolutely week 1. But in theory, it was really only week 4 of the preseason. And we saw that across the board. Defense is always ahead of offense.
Yeah.
We saw it with Josh Allen. We saw it with, even on Thursday night, the very first game of the year, we saw, an offense that we thought was going to be just great as they could be in both the Lions and we all had questions about the KC wide receivers, knowing it was going to be a little bit slim pickings without having Kelsey there. Now we know if Kelsey's playing, we know who's getting peppered. So just take that with a grain of salt. It's week 1. Don't overreact. Don't go blow all of your fab that quick.
As another PSA, be sure to put Madison in your flex position.
No. We are here to give advice, good advice, and the only good advice is to bench Alexander Madison. But I'm glad you brought that up. If they are in your lineup right now and you want them to play tonight, take them out of your flex position, put them in their actual position. That way you have that flexibility over. Don't forget, you have 2 games on Monday as well. So you have the flexibility on Sunday and then Monday as well. So get those players tonight from the Eagles and the Vikings out of your flex positions. Put them in your starting lineup. Hawkinson, Jets, JJ, AJB, Devontae Smith, even Kirk Cousins if you got him. Alexander Madison if you got him.
If you have to play him.
You got to play him. I get it. Have to do it. Jamie says, how many Kirk Cousins interceptions do we see tonight? What's the over-under on Kirk Cousins interceptions tonight? He only threw 1 last week. I would like to actually change this up because I think the number is a half.
That's what I thought it was. I thought it was a half. Yeah,
all of them.
I'm going with 2. He actually was second.
Hang on 1 second, Brian. Hang on 1 second because I'm going to change this up. I don't want to see how many. I don't want it to be how many Kirk Cousins interceptions. I want to how many Kirk Cousins turnovers. Because last week he had 3, 2 fumbles and the pick.
I'm going to go with 2 total.
2 total. So you're saying over 1?
Yeah.
I'll say 2 as well. 1 pick, 1 fumble.
Wow. If he turns the ball over 3 times tonight, oh my Lord. Is Minnesota, I mean, they're going to tear the roof off of US Bank Stadium.
Yep.
If he gets 3 turnovers. Oh my Lord. Minnesota fans, I'm sorry. This is a clean sweep from here. It is Philly winning tonight. It's in Philly. There's turnovers going to happen. Jalen Hurts might turn the ball over, but we know Kirk Cousins is turning the ball over.
Yeah, I think Slay gets a pick.
All right, guys.
Who else is getting it?
We got about, well, I mean, hell, Jalen Carter could get 2 picks. 2 picks and 19 sacks tonight.
Wow.
Put it in the books.
That ball's going to Canton, then.
Guys, we got to get out of here. We got the game starting here shortly. Guys, just one more quick reminder. If you have them in your flex position, move them out of your flex position. It is time to kick it off. Brian, what do you got going on? Tell the people.
Well, I'm going to be doing it for frequency's sake. Last Sunday, I did the main show, and then with any luck, we'll do a DFS show tomorrow night. So tune in for frequency's sake. And one last question for you, Gator. Did we have an IDP player this week?
No, I didn't get an IDP player. From Jerry. I was looking forward to that because of both of these defenses. I think the IDP player I'm going to call out, and I think I've said it multiple times, is going to be the rookie Jalen Carter.
I was going to hope you were picking him if he's going to get 19 sacks and 2 picks. And,
I could see Jalen Carter, honestly, I could see Jalen Carter getting 2 sacks tonight.
Yeah, I could absolutely see that.
And probably a forced fumble.
Yeah.
I just think he's that damn good. So I'm going to say IDP player, and this is just my IDP player tonight. You're more than welcome to add one. Is going to be Jalen Carter. Anything to add to that, Brian?
No, it sounds good. He's the one from Georgia, right?
Yeah, no, he's.
It's a safe bet if you just look at the Eagles defense. Is that the guy from Georgia? And the answer is yes. Just pick any of them.
They're all from Georgia.
Yeah.
You remember years ago when you had to ask about like New England? Where did they come from college?
Alabama.
Yeah. Alabama. When it comes to Philly, it's Georgia.
That's what I thought.
Philadelphia Bulldogs.
Steven, tell the people what you got going on and where they can find you.
Target Shares on Twitter. I just released a new article. So each week I'm doing for Going for Two, the top 10 things you need to know about fantasy football for the week. So that graph that we talked about earlier is in the article. Lots of other stuff in there too. So check that out. Target Shares on Twitter.
All right, real quick, got some breaking news that just came in. Puka Nacua has an oblique injury and did not practice today.
Oh, that would be a shame for him and for the Rams. But yeah, I mean, having that breakout and then to not play in week 2, hopefully he can.
Yeah, keep your for your Puka shares, keep your ears and eyes on that grindstone. All right, you can find me at FantasyJ77 over there on Twitter. You can find all 3 of us, VandyGrad92, Target Shares, and myself right here Thursday night pregame. Next Thursday, you can find us in the free, absolutely 100% free Discord, goingfor2.com. Go check that out. We have all of our rankings, all of our good stuff there. At the bottom right-hand corner, there is a link to go to the Discord. Please join us over there in the Discord. You can interact with all of us. We have, I don't even know how many people are in Discord, always asking questions. There's threads going every which way, including Sunday. Join us next Thursday for the Gambit. Don't forget to check out our shows. We have the cheat sheet on Tuesdays. We have the who else is going on Tuesdays? Brian, who else goes on Tuesdays? I know Los D Mix and I want to call him Orange Pills because that's the league that we're in, and that's what he's on there. But they got 2 shows going on Tuesday, cheat sheet and the other one, and I can't remember the name of it right now. My bad. You got the Armchair Quarterback on Wednesday. You got us on Thursday. You got the DFS show comes out, or the IDP show that comes out on Friday. They're recording as soon as we get out of here. And then, of course, you have the B League has his show back up and running Wednesdays afternoon at, I believe it's 3:00, if I'm not mistaken. And, of course, then the Sunday morning start sit stuff going on. So subscribe to the YouTube channel at Going for Two. on Twitter, and then of course the Discord as well. Until next week, for Steven, for Brian, I am Gator. We are out.
Yeah.